Well, welcome back, Dan. Good to have you.
Great to be here.
3 years running.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Charm.
Always a good time.
As I mentioned in my intro, there's a lot of things seeming to happen. There's a lot of buzz out there. There's also some still uncertainty, I think, about what's happening with the semi program. So let's just hit it head on. Like, what should we expect? Where are we with semi? What should we expect in 2026 here?
2026 is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, it already is. As you noted, we rolled the first truck off the line last week. Super exciting, amazing milestone for the team that's worked so hard on it over the years. But the balance of the year, now it's about ironing out all the various process controls, supply chain, everything in the factory, and then it's ramp like hell. And so we're going to be really getting ready to deliver things at scale, and then all of the things downstream to go with it. So that's charging infrastructure, that's service, you're making sure that the customer, when we put a truck into the field, has everything they need to do the job. And we're really excited. Like, all of those are going to be big milestones for the team, huge growth, and we really want to bring a lot of a new wave, this transition to electric vehicles.
Before we get to scale and deliveries and downstream and all those things, just back up for a second and think about the last year and maybe the last couple of years, because you've been running semi for 3-4 years now, I think. We were involved in the Pepsi project, and I know there's a lot of other customers. I think I read somewhere you have about 15 million miles that you've run on semi, which is a considerable amount of miles. I'm sure you've learned a lot. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned along the way, what surprises came up, what customer feedback, how has that all been baked into this moment where you're putting forward the product for commercial scale on the line?
Yeah, the pilot fleet has taught us a lot, and our customers have been awesome to work with. They provide us with a ton of data, really great feedback, and been excellent partners along the way as we've gotten into all kinds of different applications. And we've really learned a lot. I mean, the new trucks, they've got a little facelift, but it was all in the mind of lower cost, higher reliability, lower mass, so all things our customers care about. But on top of that, we got a lot of feedback when looking at their day-to-day operations on how do we make the truck fit better. That's where we increase the charge speed, or 1.2 megawatts now. And on the charging hardware side, we've done a lot. One thing for deploying infrastructure at facilities is the V4, our newest and latest and greatest version of the charging cabinet and post. Everything's a lot denser, so it takes up less space in the yard, which is highly valuable for a number of fleets, particularly in tight urban areas. And on top of it, a lot of folks, when looking at that operations, it really, to do a full V4 fast charge deployment, even if it wasn't about power, that doing that didn't necessarily fit well with their operations. And we really saw the need for a lower cost, things that you can deploy in increments of one, and an overnight or off-shift charger. So that's our base charger, which we just announced last week and can be made available for $20,000. And so that provides like a really great low entry point for somebody that's trying to electrify. Maybe it's just one truck, but it could also be a smaller fleet or a complement where you have a mix of both off-shift charging as well as high-speed charging on site. And we really think that just having all the tools in the toolbox is really important for our customers, and getting that operational feedback was key. And then on the product side, we did a lot of little improvements that might not seem like much, but really matter, particularly to the drivers. And I know that it seems silly, but everybody really wanted a drop glass window. There is no escaping that. It made it very clear that there's a lot of fixed infrastructure in the world. And in our first design, we thought we might be able to do it with a little pop-out window, but turns out, nope, you gotta have a full drop glass. And that now is in the latest truck that's out here, and has been well received by those who have had a chance to demo it so far. But other little things, like we've changed the sun visor, we've updated the mirrors, we've introduced additional pre-trip routines and capabilities for drivers, just a lot of those little things based on feedback to just cut drag, make operations easier. And I think overall the team's done a great job of working closely with our customers.
Interesting to hear that there's no major powertrain, axle, it's little tweaks. So I guess kudos to your original design team.
Well, I'll be the first to admit that there were definitely some like early teething issues, but we got through them. And to that point now, like in 2025, the fleet had 97% uptime. And when there was an incident, our service team was able to get the truck back into customers' hands in less than 24 hours, more than 90% of the time. So we're talking key-to-key times of more than 90% and an overall fleet uptime of more than 97%. And so yeah, early on, we like first truck, had a few teething issues, but like really figured it out, cut in a bunch of improvements, and the fleet's now out there working every day really hard, delivering freight, running in successful businesses, and we're just happy to be a part of it, and now we want to do even better with the next one.
I don't want to gloss over, those are super impressive numbers. 90%, 97% uptime and 80% return in 24 hours. I mean, those are industry goals, so kudos and congrats. I guess the question then that comes is, this is not at scale. So what happens at scale?
Yeah, and I think that we'll, introduction, probably go through some teething issue of some kind, but we'll work really closely, and at scale, it is the same formula. And that is bring over the high reliability components from our other programs. So I mean, our drive converter shared Cybertruck. Our thermal compressor is actually shared with the upcoming Cybercab. So like, we are leveraging high volume componentry, and our screens are from Model 3 and Y. These are things that have billions of miles of field reliability in them, and so we really understand them. We've also designed them to be highly serviceable, so things can be replaced very easily. Get trucks back into operation quickly. But also leverage things like our parts distribution network, that exists for the car side. So we'll have full independent service center and operations for semi, but the backing pipeline of how we flow parts, the vertical integration that Tesla has, that all stays the same. And one thing that's really great at scale, over-the-air software updates. You don't need to go to a dealer. You don't need to go to anywhere to update your truck. And it can be everything from a brand new feature to a bug fix, or even just a small improvement. Everything is then available over the air, and this is something that if you've been in one of our cars or had the privilege of working in the Tesla ecosystem, you understand that this is just part of it, and we're excited to bring that same experience over to the truck side. That's a big part of doing things at scale.
There's a lot I want to dive deeper in a lot of those areas, particularly on service and parts and maintenance. But before we do that, I also don't want to overlook the fact that it sounds, at least from what I saw a week or so ago, first truck is coming off the line. So tell us what's going on with the factory. Are we up and running? What makes the factory special and unique, given I think it's a purpose-built plant for just the semi? And then ultimately, of course, everything here at ACT is, what does that mean to the customer? What does that mean for the end-use commercial customer in terms of delivery, efficiency, reliability, cost? Tell us about the factory and relevance to the fleets.
Factory's awesome. I'm very fortunate to get to walk through it and just marvel at all the great work that the Tesla team has done. Manufacturing has really become one of Tesla's specialties, and it really shows that you walk through the plant. The team is just really kick-ass. And we took a lot of ideas from the car side. So it's a fully integrated facility. I mean, obviously we have important suppliers that are supplying us with parts, but we bring in raw coils and stamp a lot of our own parts. So we bring in coils, do blanking, stamping. Things proceed to a body shop where we're doing the cab body along with the closures and other parts in that battery enclosure, for example. That all then gets coated, goes through over to general assembly where full chassis gets integrated, including in the powertrain, which is also built fully in-house. So cells come in, and we put together the whole battery module, battery pack, but then on top of it, we've got the drive axle, and we've got our internal rotor line, down to that level of vertical integration. And so it's just a really neat facility where you get to see virtually raw material come in and finished product come out. And on top of it, a lot of lessons learned from other factories. We've learned how to stand up facilities with less cost, and less cost on the factory means less cost for trucks. So that's a direct benefit for our fleet we're definitely going through. But also we put a huge priority on safety. And if you go through the ergonomics for working with these big parts, and those that are here understand trucks have really big, heavy parts, high forces, big fasteners, and either it's done in an automated sense, or it's done with ergonomic friendly stations that allow for our associates to work really productively and safely. And so that means that that safety culture is something that emanates throughout Tesla, and the trucks that we deliver to fleets are going to be extremely high quality, very repeatable. That high volume, that automation in a lot of our lines really increases the overall right out of the gate factory quality. And so the fleets can take good solace that they're getting a high quality product right away.
Production, you mentioned last year, was 50,000 units a year. That's a pretty aggressive number given the size of the market.
Yep.
I'm guessing you probably aren't going to get there in this year, but tell us, what's the ramp look like? How do you get to 50,000 units a year, and what should we expect for the balance of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict the exact balance for the year because it's a bit of an S-curve. And so when you're talking about a short time horizon, exact date, and quantity, it's all about the area under the curve. And if you miss by a day or two, it can actually have an effect because that S-curve goes up pretty steep. And so, right now we're focused heavily on ironing out all the processes, balancing the lines and the stations, ensuring factory equipment is running optimally. And so we're going to be bursting and trying to do all the things to demonstrate rate. And then it's just, like I said, ramp like hell. And try to get as many trucks out as fast as we can, of high quality. And so, it's hard to predict what the exact balance of the year is, but we're targeting over the first year production many thousands, that's for sure. And I think that we really want to make a significant dent, and there's definitely appetite for it. For 26, we're mostly subscribed, and so we're in a good position, and we're ready to serve any customer that's interested. But our target is still that 50,000 a year, and it might take a bit to get there on the ramp side, but we definitely see the opportunity because the TCO is there, and we see a good chance to realize that full factory capacity.
So, as I mentioned a couple times here, we do an annual report called State of Sustainable Fleets, and S&P Global Mobility is one of our partners on that, and they give us access to some really great data. So I asked them, how many heavy-duty electric trucks are registered today in the United States and Canada? And there are 2,829 Class 7 and 8 trucks registered in aggregate in the US and Canada today. So you said many thousands. So in the first year, can we expect we're going to double that?
I have a very high confidence in that.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing it. One of the other interesting updates is that you now have two trucks, a long range and a standard range. We've seen the long range here previously, and that's been out in the world. It's one sitting over here to our left, your right. And the 325 mile standard range is on the show floor, hooked up to electric reefer, which you teased us a little bit about last year. But tell us more about this 325 mile variety.
Yeah, so the standard range truck, I think it's something we've talked about before, but great to actually have it here in the flesh. I mean, I understand it's just behind me right now, but it really is, I think, going to be a jack of all trades for a lot of customers. I mean, it's at 325 miles, you can do a good amount of work with it. It's a drop-in replacement for diesel and for a lot of local or drayage, or kind of that regional haul. You're not going to be doing over the road big stuff with it, but it's a very highly capable truck. And then it's lighter. We're less than 20,000 pounds tear, and that's before we get to the 2,000 pound weight exemption. And so we're talking about a 48,000 pound payload roughly with a traditional dry van setup. And it's a significant cost reduction from the long range as well, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised on price. And we're just really happy to have it because I think for a good set of the industry, it's going to be a really great vehicle for their operation. And long range, big energy, big capability, and I'm really glad we got it out there in the pilot days because it showed what electric trucking could do, and super happy to have it back here. But I think the standard range is going to be a big part of our volume when it gets introduced later this year.
So one of the things, and I talked a little bit about this with RJ, as a kind of a new player in the market, you're coming into fleets that have well-established systems. They have telematics providers that they work with. They have fleet management systems. All these things that are, as best they can, ironed out across the universe of brands that they buy from. And so how does Tesla now fit into this from an integration perspective in those sorts of systems? Or is all the software semi-specific, or how does that work?
We totally understand that these fleets are going to integrate our truck. Vehicle is really important. So we're not being exclusive on that front. We are common or have compatibility with all the major ELD providers and have worked with them. And so that's a plug and play thing. We do have some options for some more direct integration, and we have things like our fleet API, which is accessible now, and that will provide additional granularity on the truck. And things like software updates are managed directly through the Tesla systems because that's specific to our vehicle. But when it comes to general fleet integration, the ELD side, commonality is really important. We understand that, and so we don't want to be standing up an island in that respect.
The other thing you mentioned, and we talked a little bit about last year, was the EPTO. And we can see it in the hall. You're hooked up to an electric reefer, you're powering the reefer from the truck. But that EPTO can do other things besides charge a reefer. Not to minimize that, that's pretty cool and I think a big deal for a lot of reasons. But there's lots of other things that PTOs do in this world. Dump trucks, mixers, bucket, lift trucks, whatever. How are you approaching the market and what are ultimately probably other suppliers that will come develop that technology? How do you think about that with this EPTO that you now offer?
Our goal is to have that interface be something that is universal. And essentially, we provide you with available power, you use it. And the refrigerated trailer area is a great step to get into because there's a reasonable volume, there's a good TCO application there in terms of eliminating an additional consumption of diesel. So there's a really solid use case there, and I think that's a great entry point. Plus, it's a fun demonstrator. We did a great little event at Palo Alto where we had turned it on, tested it before we came here, and we loaded up with ice cream and served it to the employees there, and they had a great kick out of it. So it's visible, it's fun, but for the other folks that are looking to do other applications, other vocations, the goal is to have something that is standardized, universal. Here's 25 kilowatts, have fun.
I did go look for my ice cream sandwich when it pulled in, but
oh yeah, well, did you have to settle for water or something?
Yeah, the rules of the convention center won't allow you to serve the ice cream. But
you don't have some pull around here?
not that much.
Okay.
So let's talk about customer market segments. We've heard about Pepsi, Frito-Lay, right? They're the kind of the anchor tenant, big visibility. I think that there's been a lot in the market. It's just potato chips, right? Sort of dismissive, but I'm sure you have other customers. We saw DHL, we saw Kroger, I'm sure there's lots of others. So tell us about what you have seen and types of customers that the Semi has already run in to date, and then forward-looking, what are you thinking about as far as targeting segments of the market, all segments, some segments, where do you see the fit?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of great success with customers that have adopted the truck or put them into lengthy demos, which that's a demo program for those that are interested. We are expanding into other parts of the country as well. But in terms of operation types, we've seen, we have a whole bunch. We've got truckload carriers, less than truckload carriers. We do, our trucks are out doing coil hauling. So they're bringing coils directly to the Fremont factory. Food and beverage is an area that has a lot of interest, drayage. So it's a really great swath of the industry, and I think that we're going to continue to see some neat applications that folks get into, even at construction equipment hauling somewhat too. So it's been a good diverse set. We've learned a lot. It's really funny because the Pepsi side of PepsiCo actually hauls a lot more than the Frito side does. So they're out hauling a lot of heavy stuff and dense stuff every day. And then obviously we have it in our own fleet. So we've got hauling battery packs and drive units and other things to support our own supply chain operations. And that's a bit more of that private carrier style fleet. But we really try to get a diverse set because learning is really key. And we also want to showcase that the truck can drop in one for one in almost every diesel operation.
So it sounds like it's pretty common that you're running up to that 65, 80,000 pound kind of.
Oh yeah.
You said you're expanding to other parts of the country. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of times people think, electric trucks, California, ports, and that's it. But there's fleets, a lot of fleets here. They run all over North America, US and Canada. How are you handling that if a fleet says, I want to do trucks in Toronto, New York, Chicago, Texas, all over? Is that possible, or are you scaling it out and kind of small ramp?
We're starting in regions that have a large number of trucks, as well as South California is a very quintessential example of that. It's the largest truck, and the economics are really, really strong. And so you put those together, and that's where a lot of our early deployments will be. Also, side note, there's still $200 million of HVIP funding available for those that have fleets in California, so go ahead and grab it. But there are other parts of the country where the TCO is really great too, and because of the way the prices work, it's you might not think of every state as being the most natural fit, but seeing a lot of growth and opportunity in Texas, and also in the Southeast, so Georgia area, New York, New Jersey, Chicago, and then the Pacific Northwest has a lot of opportunity as well. So you see out these like little patchy, it looks like on the map, but these are day cabs that are doing that regional haul every day, and this map looks a lot like our early supercharger map. And over time, you're going to start to connect those nodes. So our plan is to get into those other regions, and it's as well as we're planning to go to Canada in 2027, for example. So like we are definitely expanding into other parts of the country and in North America, and we have really big plans to do so. But we're just starting where we've got very strong demand signals. But as we ramp up, costs come down, it's going to unlock more and more markets, and we're going to go everywhere.
What's the map?
So that's a charging map. So we've got 50 stations in progress right now for public charging, and so that's not including private charging at all. We've got we're on track to have like more than half of those available by the end of this year, or open and running. And the first couple will open in Southern California here in in about 2 months. So this is an area we're investing a lot in, and we understand the need for public charging. For some folks, it will be their primary charging method. And for others, it's a range extension, or it's something that will complement the charging they have at their home base. So we really are leaning into it though, because we understand that it's necessary for all parts of the industry, and we're excited to get more and more posts out there.
So you mentioned a couple of different customer types, drayage being one of them, but I'm wondering, how do you think about the market? I mean, so far, Pepsi, DHL, and these very big, well-capitalized companies, lots of resources that can put teams on this. And then we have the drayage market, right, which is often characterized by owner-operators, small fleets, 3 to 5 trucks, something like that. Not folks that are well-capitalized. They don't have departments, right? They have owners, drivers, but they're a big area of focus. So are you focused on drayage? Are you focused more on the big corporate, well-capitalized? How do you think about the market and the different types and sizes and capabilities of the market, particularly financial capabilities?
I mean, first of all, we'll sell to anybody. Owner-operator, big fleet, small fleet, we've seen a lot of opportunities, a lot of interest, sell to anybody. On drayage in particular, it's a really unique and I think a great market for the semi as well as other EVs to play in. And that's because, I mean, the DEF side is a little unfriendly with high idling applications. You're like pushing those engines kind of hard, you're like pushing a lot of DEF through, and it's like not great. When you've got an EV, it's quiet, it's comfortable, it's very happy to sit there at idle and keeps the driver in a comfortable state. And so, I never want anybody to have to wait for their load or at the dock, but
Never have.
exactly, it's the nature of the business, right? And so we might as well give them the most comfortable office and environment in which to do that operations. And so drayage, I actually think, in that respect, provides a lot of benefits just immediately to the driver. On the other side, it's generally common freight flows. So you're talking major port to a common area where drayage and containers are getting dropped off. So it presents natural routes for a charging opportunity. And those small operators, it also means that we're putting charging along that corridor for them to be able to recharge their vehicle as they need to. But the standard range truck at 325 miles of range can do a couple port runs, in most of the major port areas, which is great. And then on top of it, we're dropping service centers in locations to support them. And then more on like a community standpoint, drayage is a huge source of pollutants and particulate emissions in a lot of the communities that they drive through and operate in. And that's the other thing about the EVs is they just completely knock that out. And that's an important part of Tesla is our mission and that sustainable transportation, not just in the greenhouse gas offset, but those are measurable, meaningful health impacts that we can have by putting clean trucks into those communities.
You also mentioned you're going to soon start selling in Canada, which is sometimes cold, and they sometimes have snow and ice. So, as do we in the Rockies and other parts of the country, tire chains are not uncommon in the winter. And so, what do we have to know about the semi? Does it work with tire change and snow and ice, and how does the cold weather affect range and all those sorts of things?
Well, it does work with chains. I have personally chained up over Donner Pass. Do not recommend it. It is really like kudos to the drivers that are doing that on a day-to-day basis. Like that is a heck of a job. The truck does great in the snow, and traction control capabilities on low mu or mixed mu conditions is just unreal. I mean, you go and throw this thing around in a snowfield or on an ice rink and it just rips. It's amazing how much control you have. But from an operational standpoint, it does great. I mean, this is a nice photo. We're up in Alaska, so we go up there to a proving ground and spend time, and like trucks never go inside. Like they're not parked. They go in the shop if they need worked on, but they're not parked overnight in there. So they're seeing minus 35, minus 40, and they are very happy. And so we use our heat pump system to move thermal energy throughout the truck to keep the battery at its peak operating condition. It's a cube-shaped pack, if you will, and so that retains a lot of heat as well. But we've just learned a lot on how to operate in cold weather conditions, and the truck does a really great job at it. So whether it's Canada or the northern parts of the U.S., the Rockies, full confidence that the truck's going to be like a really great fit. You will see some range degradation like you do in all vehicles because you just can't fight the laws of physics. The air is denser, the tires don't roll as well. But in terms of just straight operations, oh man, the truck is great in those conditions. Plus, speaking of connectivity, as the owner of a Tesla, like I have become very much a slave to remote climate preconditioning, and the truck drivers love it as well, whether it's hot Las Vegas or cold mountains and snow. The ability to get into a preconditioned truck is very compelling at the start of your shift. So we're really set up for the cold weather.
Nice. He also said there's 200 million in HFIP, so please go get it, which makes me then ask, how critical are incentives to you making sales? I think you also said the TCO is there. So tell us about the incentives world. Is it critical? Is it necessary? Are you kind of requiring that to see this move forward?
The incentives, what they really do is they eliminate the TCO uncertainty that a fleet might have as they are adopting their first truck. But the idea is that they adopt their first truck that opens the gate for their next truck. And so they might take advantage of incentives now to get that first wave. Maybe it's one or maybe it's about 20, but for their next 100 or hundreds, that's where then they realize, oh, this works, I don't need the incentives. And so that's where we really see them as a big reduction of risk and uncertainty for the industry. And so we really work with our customers to whatever they qualify for to go get, but we recognize in the long term that that is not something we've built the business on the back of, and that we plan to operate in an unincentivized environment when that time comes.
So let's drill down a little bit more on the TCO. So there's lots of data out there, and you shouldn't always believe everything you read on the internet. But some of the numbers I've seen is that the cost to operate a semi is 20 to 25 cents a mile, compared to diesel of about 80 cents per mile, which is a huge savings of 60 cents a mile. But what are some of the assumptions baked in there? I mean, are those good numbers, first of all? And if so, how does that vary? What's the variability? Is that today's $5 diesel? Is that regular diesel? Price of electricity is obviously the other factor there. How should a customer be thinking about those two numbers and the delta between them?
It's highly regional. Electric prices vary by state and utility. Diesel prices, as we all know, vary hugely by region. And so those TCO numbers, it really just depends on your exact operation and where your deployment is. And that's where we work with our customers and the tools that we have to showcase the TCO that are going to exist in that area. With that being said, is at the start of the year, so this was before the recent supply chain shock. At the start of the year, more than half the country had a payback period of less than 5 years. And that's with today's launch pricing, and again, electric and diesel prices at the start of the year. And so that's where we have a huge degree of confidence that we're going to be able to go and serve everybody with a very attractive TCO over time as our costs continue to come down. And the recent supply chain shock, I think, is a good motivator, not necessarily on the direct dollars front, though that is a factor, but it's also the overall volatility. Switching to electric, you really remove or reduce that volatility in pricing on a day-to-day basis. That's a huge factor for a number of operators and fleets.
How do you work with the customer? Because the price of electricity is going to be critical to getting those numbers to work. Is it something that your team helps with? Do you have a sales team, or do you rely on companies like ABB and the infrastructure world to do that? How does that actually happen in practice?
I mean, some customers they've been exposed to EVs, they've run it in their fleet, so they're familiar. And so sometimes we can come in and provide some additional learnings and guidance from our own teams and our fleet. But generally speaking, we're right there with our customers to help them understand what their exposure to electric prices are going to be. And if it's behind the fence charging, what's the rate structure that makes sense? Are there ways to mitigate demand charges by making sure we're right sizing the size of the truck deployment against the size of the charging deployment? But it's public charging, that's where we work with them on what the expected public charging price is going to be for that area, so they can accurately estimate their economics and their TCO. And we also have tools in our tool belt to do things like deploy energy storage where it makes sense, to help maintain consistent electric pricing and be less prone to peaks or some of those demand charges.
Infrastructure is a big part of the equation, obviously.
Absolutely.
You mentioned 50 stations, half of which are coming this year. What's the roadmap look beyond that? How should we think about the next 1, 3, 5+ years for semi-charging?
I mean, it's the same playbook as Supercharger, and we're going to go where we need to go. Right now, we are at a point where we have to really make sure that every truck that gets sold and delivered has a charging solution. Now, over time, as we continue to build out the network, you can maybe bring up just the charging population, and bring up the truck population that fits into some of the charging that's been built out. But we plan to just use the same experience and roadmap that we have in the Supercharger side. And it's crazy because occasionally, I don't even believe these numbers, but the Supercharger team at this point, they're in their fastest rate of deployment ever. They've deployed more than 80,000 DC fast chargers worldwide. And so that experience has really taught us how to move fast in regions and work closely with utilities and all the various folks that have jurisdiction. And so we're just going to leverage that same thing, and it's all go. And we really, really want to put as many posts into the ground as we can to make sure that our customers always have a charging solution. Interoperability is a key piece of this as well. So as other folks stand up and their own charging hardware, our trucks can charge on them. As we stand up charging hardware, we want other MCS-equipped vehicles to charge on our network. We really want there to be that everything plugs into everything type of mindset. And again, we've got charging products to directly sell. You want to go buy a base charger? It's on the website. It's right there for the taking. And so we're going to take the lead in charging to make sure folks have a solution, but we want everybody to come right along with us.
Well, it's awesome to hear, especially the interoperability part. I know the Rustam and the MCS team have been wrestling that issue for many, many years, and so it's great to hear that that's been resolved, and we now have that ability to operate seamlessly across the universe and across the industry. That's awesome.
Interoperability always has its teething issues, so it'll be an interesting rollout as we get hands to shake well. But yeah, we're committed to doing it, and it was great to be part of that MCS development and help shape it. I think we're on a good footing.
Yeah. Another big thing we saw this year that we haven't even mentioned yet is you have a partnership now with Pilot, which I asked. Pilot was on the stage 2 years ago. You were on the stage 2 years. But tell us about that. What does that partnership mean? What's the vision for how this rolls out infrastructure? And ultimately, what does the customer need to know as far as what does a charging event look like at a Pilot site?
I mean, from a charging event standpoint, for those that have had a chance to drive one of our cars, it's that exact experience in a truck. So plug in your destination, truck tells you where to charge, preconditions the vehicle for optimal charging performance. You arrive, we tell you which stalls are available, you plug in, walk away. Monitor from your phone, tells you when the truck's ready to go for however much energy you need, or maybe you're done with your break, get back in, drive away, all seamless. And the beauty of doing things at truck stops like the Pilots and working with them is that all the amenities are there. It's an environment drivers are familiar with. It's an area that they're accustomed to. It's along the major routes. So we're definitely looking at areas like that and working with the truck stop providers to ensure that we've got a good experience for the customers and the drivers across the board. But we are where we need to, standing up our own fully owned Tesla stations as well. But yeah, the beauty or the goal here is to bring that seamless Tesla charging experience to heavy charging.
So you're open to working with other truck stop providers to put infrastructure in?
The same thing will work with anybody. I mean, we got to get a lot of posts in the ground. So, like, Pilot's been great to work with, and we're excited to get a good number of posts in at their sites. But like, we've got a lot of ground to cover. The country's pretty big.
So I want to circle back around on the service side, right? You'll work with anybody. Service is a big part of success to deploying any sort of new technology, especially.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're going to kind of piggyback your existing backbone supply chain for the Tesla Automotive, but tell us more about how the service is going to work on a national basis for those fleets that are putting trucks maybe in New Jersey, Dallas, other parts of the US and Canada. How does that service really be there to support them, and how do you make sure that they have the parts they need when they need them, quick turn, and maintain that 24-hour turnaround that you've been able to achieve 80% of the time?
Yeah, whatever region we're delivering trucks into, Tesla will have a service presence. And that's because we want to lead with the Tesla service experience, where we can use that connectivity, leverage all of those backend streams to really create good for a customer operation. With that being said, we know that a number of fleets, including some of the ones that are already having trucks today and have done this, use their own technicians. And so we have a training program, an opportunity for folks to come and learn from us both digitally and in person on how to work on the truck. And there's various levels. I mean, early on, brakes are brakes. They're really not that different. But then you start to get into some of the more communications, low voltage, and eventually high voltage work. So there's different tiers at different levels, but that's an opportunity for fleets to do some of their own service where it makes sense, as well as potentially working with third-party service providers in these regions. But again, wherever we go, and these are some dots on the map, and we already have service stations in LA. We've got them in Reno, several in the Central Valley, and then we're opening them in all the areas that we're planning to deliver trucks.
Awesome. Scaling infrastructure, service parts. You thought about this?
Well, I mean, we've learned a lot from our experience on the light duty side, and I understand that that is not necessarily always a one-for-one comparison, but we really like to do things at scale, and we're really excited to take this chapter on the heavy duty side as well.
A lot happening. I've got 50 more questions, as you know, but we're already well over time, and as I said with RJ, I'm going to not be invited back next year if I go too much longer. But I've got a few last questions for you just to kind of wrap up and give us some sense of what to expect in the balance of the year and the years ahead. Obviously, a lot has come together. You promised us last year 2026 is going to be an exciting year. I think we've promises made, promises kept. There's a lot happening, but you're just starting to put trucks on the road now, the first trucks. But what should we really expect to see in the next 6 to 12 months here? Let's call it balance of 26, and then the rest of 27, 28.
Yeah, I mean, right now, what we're focused on is launching, gearing up, and getting ready to ramp factory. So I mean, really through the end of the year is about demonstrating the factory's capability of like, we can do this at volume, effectively, and get trucks into meaningful capacity. Like that's a big thing. For 2027, it's about entering some new regions. We've got Canada. We're also planning to take the truck to Europe. Then on top of that, introducing a few new options, driving down cost, improving the TCO that much more. So 27 is going to be a great year, but right now for 26, it's about like, let's get it out, let's ramp. Things are pretty simple, just go.
Excellent. Last thought, what do you want to make sure folks, particularly fleet customers, take away from the conversation today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is that like, TCO's here. It really is. And every day that your business is not running electric is a day you're leaving money on the table. Full stop. And I think that's extremely true for a huge number of applications and regions. And so like, that's it's really the big thing. We've got great products. They're improved, they're lighter, they're cheaper. They've got more capability, both on truck side and charging side. And all of the downstream pieces are being deployed to support you in the field. So that's charging, that's service. We've got a whole ecosystem coming in a large wave at scale to make sure we can have an impact on the industry and the world.
Excellent. Where do I sign up?
It's gonna be a fun year, man.
Well, I'm super thrilled to have you back, Dan. Appreciate
Thanks,
you
Eric.
being here. The update, let's give Dan a round of applause here. Very, very exciting, and a great way to end our main stage. So looking forward to thinking about what we talk about next year and seeing the progress that you made. But good luck this year, and I'm gonna knock on your door at the factory. I want to take a peek.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dan.
Take care.
Appreciate it.